Australia in 1917 was hurting. It was the worst year of World War I, with 21,000 soldiers killed on the battlefront. With a population of 4.9 million, the losses per capita were amongst the heaviest in the Allied nations. The home front saw the Great Strike, many street demonstrations, the rising cost of living, this with underlying grief from being at war. On December 20, 1917, the second referendum for conscription took place with one question: are you in favour of the proposal of the Commonwealth Government for reinforcing the Australian Imperial Force overseas? The referendum was defeated. On this same day, Jack Bell was born. Little did his parents know their son would enlist in the Second World War 23 years later. Chapter House proudly presents Every Life Has a Story to Tell. Jack Bell, an Australian airman, POW in North Africa, Italy and Germany, and a great Australian.
I was born in Toowong in Brisbane, a suburb of Brisbane. I don't remember much about my very early life, except that we lived in a street called Elizabeth Street in Toowong when I was about from 4 on. And in 1926 we moved to Jepson Street in Toowong, which my father built the house. And we lived there until the war broke out and I went overseas. Well, school, as a little tot, we didn't have shoes and socks in those days. Everybody was barefooted, of course. We used to walk to school, the Toowong Primary State School. Along the road, it was about half a mile to the school, I'd say, and we used to walk there and walk home. And sometimes I'd run home at lunchtime to get something to eat, because I'd forget to take my lunch or eat it at morning tea. But they were enjoyable days, they were fun days to me, except Hopkins he was a stern sort of a teacher, and he used to throw bits of chalk at you and hit you over the head with a board brush. But he had 50-odd kids in the class, I don't blame him. My first kiss was with a girl named Shirley Simon, and I think it was her 14th birthday. We had to hop the fence next door because she was hiding in the bushes at her birthday party. Why, I don't know. And I kissed her on the cheek. And that was my first kiss that I remember. My first car I had with my brother was a Model T Ford. I think it was model 1921, I'm not quite sure. My father's first car was a 1918 T, which we have no record of. But we have got a photograph of the 21 model with us 4 kids standing in front beside it. When I left school, the unemployment rate in Australia in those days was 30%. So you can imagine the jobs were very hard to get for boys and young girls. I left school in early December 1933, and I tramped the streets of Brisbane. I went to the main streets. I went after building after building after building, asking for a job. And I didn't have any position whatsoever to go to I'd call up for second interviews until February 1934. When I got home after a day in town in Brisbane, and my mother said, you'd go straight back into town and go to D&W Murray Limited in Creek Street in Brisbane and see Mr. Peterson. That's how I got my first job. It was in the textile job. I didn't know a clue what I was doing, but it was a job. And frankly, I've enjoyed my life in the textile industry. It's been a fantastic time. I really enjoyed it. I joined the Australian Militia Forces in August 1936. My friend and I, Sam Maxwell, I mean, we're all short of money. We didn't get much money paid in those days, at that age, 18. And a friend of his said, well, if you joined the militia, you get 8 shillings if you go on parade, you get 8 shillings at a time. So we decided we'd join the militia. So we joined the Royal Artillery Regiment and at Kelvin Grove Barracks, and they were wonderful because we got 8 bob to go on parade at night time, and we learnt about guns and firing and so forth. I'd go into a camp once every year for 7 days and got paid 8 shillings a day, which was incredible. Because I think my pay in those days was maybe 22 shillings, that's it, a couple of dollars. And so we thoroughly enjoyed the militia life, the regimentation of it, and they had no thought of going to war, but we used all the celebratory days, Queen King's birthday and things like that, we go and shoot the guns, and I became a gun layer, a loader, a gun layer, an acting sergeant. I was made a corporal bombardier, they call them in the artillery, and it really was a lovely life. It was excellent. Then war broke out in 1939, and we went into camp at Caloundra for a month, intensive training. And using these 18-pounder guns, I could hit an anthill over a small hill 3,000 yards away with ranging shots, and I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to stay down here, I'm going to go up there where I'm going to be hard to be shot at. So I decided I'd join the Air Force, which I put my name down in December 1939. I got called up in May 1940. All my friends that stayed in the army, not one got killed. They were very fortunate of the little battery that I was in, the number of people. And of course I get shot down because they all were very derisive of my volunteering for the Air Force after the war. They used to kid me no end, but as you can imagine. They served in Egypt, Libya, Syria, went up into the islands, and they all that, but not one person was killed, which was very lucky, fortunate for them. The function of the actual squadron I was in was an English squadron, 216, not 216 because it's formed by the Navy, so it's 216, it's not 216. And they were supposed to be bombers, but the planes were so old and out of date that they were taken out of active service in April 1941 and used as what they termed bomber transports, which meant you took up spare plies, engine parts, and went to the front line, brought back wounded and so forth, and carried up medical supplies and replacement Air Force personnel. And the operation we were on this particular day was to fly to a little place called Masous, which was south of Benghazi in Libya, and to bring back brigade headquarters staff, or some of them, and wounded, and we took up medical supplies and a replacement aircrew. Unfortunately, the British intelligence was 2 days behind, and the front was over 100 miles ahead of us. But flying at 3,000 feet was our designated height. We were over the top of the cloud bank, because in the desert, the clouds developed at night time and then dropped down during the day and heightened up later in the mornings. So we had to get down to under 1,000 feet to get under the cloud bank, and approaching Masous, we were attacked by a group of German Panzer Division, tank division, and we were shot down by a rather fantastic gun that the Germans invented, what they call the 88mm. And the shell exploded in the front of myself, in the front cockpit, killing my friend the observer Tony Carter, injuring that one pilot very severely, and injuring one of our pilot passengers in the back. Now, we were in flames. The second pilot didn't have any wound whatsoever. He landed the plane, crash landed, we were in flames, and I was wounded. And frankly, we didn't expect to be attacked because we didn't have, the only gun we had on board wasn't even loaded because we were carrying passengers. We didn't have parachutes because we were carrying passengers. So our only way of survival was to crash land, which this second pilot brought down. I wouldn't say a gentle landing, but it wasn't too bad. It didn't crash the undercar, but at least we got down. We were very lucky to get out. He saved our lives, there's no doubt about it. Just after we crash landed, of course the plane was on fire and it had to evacuate out, which we all managed to do, but unfortunately the first pilot was so badly wounded that the second pilot asked me to go in this, drop under the escape hatch in the front of the aircraft in the cockpit and help land him onto the ground. But unfortunately I didn't realise how badly wounded I was and he crashed down on top of me. But we were then taken by ambulance to Upfield Hospital near Antle at the bottom of the Gulf of Sirte, where I was operated on, then transported to Tripoli, to a hospital there, and on a hospital shipped over to Naples. In the next 3 years, 3 months and 3 weeks I spent as a POW in Italy and Germany. It was an experience I wouldn't do without, but I don't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, because the hardship that was suffered by not only myself, but our fellow prisoners was severe at times. And I measure today the outlook on life, the respect that I have for all nations, because we had 33 nations in our prison camp. We had to get along because we had to live together. And I'm most unhappy about our situation in the world today. We're developing exactly the same what was happening 60, 70 years ago, unfortunately. My best friend, who's in the Air Force, travelled on the same ship over to overseas, Tony Carter. We were assigned to the same squadron, and he was a observer, now then called navigator. And we were positioned together as relieving operatives on various crews. Now Tony, we lived in the same tent, we were very good mates, and when he was killed in that crash, well, he was killed by the shell actually. After the war, I took it on myself to go and visit his family. Well, unbeknown to me, I didn't know, but his father had died. But I went to see his mother in Sydney. It was I think the most terrible thing I've ever had to do in my life. Face up to a lady who was weeping as I was weeping, and to see in her eyes, not that she said it, why was it my son? I'll never forget the expression. I never ever could go back and see her again. Well, it was just the most terrible experience for me. But it taught me compassion. And I've always tried to do my best to help other people since that time. When I came back from the war, I went back to my old position as manager of the men's boys clothing department at the NW Murray and used to make trips to Melbourne. And I went into the office of this woolen mill and there was a nice young girl sitting there, very attractive. I thought, she's very nice. And every 3 months I went down to Melbourne to buy merchandise to make manufacture into clothing materials. Well, in 1949, I was approached to take over the sales managership of this mill, which I did. Knowing the situation, the owner of the mill decided that Dora's cook could not work for me. She had to work for an associate company, which was so. But we courted, and I wasn't in a mental state that I could say that I was ready to get married. I don't think that any of us that came back in prison life was in a natural, decent condition. We all had our anxieties and pluses and minuses. And it wasn't until 1953 that I didn't propose. We decided that we'd get married. Now, we had a lovely wedding at the Wesley Chapel in Brown. We've got a beautiful daughter, magnificent lass, Sandra, 3 grandkids and 1 great-grandchild, which has only arrived in the last 3 weeks. We've had a wonderful life. We're just ordinary average people working, but we hope that we've made some difference to the world. Well, as you well know, I'm 100, but I'm in my 101st year now. As I say to people, I'm starting out life and I'm turning 1. My name is Jack Bell, and every life has a story to tell. All you've got to do is ask.